All right, so I was looking at a lot of my students' projects, and it occurred to me that we needed to work on adding a little bit better feedback to these like collectible items. It's something I overlooked when I made the original video for this. So just to remind you kind of how this was set up, actually, you know what, I'm just going to disable this starting sequence for right now to make testing faster. But actually, I think I have this thing turned off too, so let me go ahead and turn it on. I'm just going to turn its usable back on. If you don't remember how we set up the item, the key here in this case, you should just go back and watch that video. But then when you've got a working collectible item, this is the next video to check out to figure out how to get better feedback on it. So it has pretty good feedback if I walk up to it because it says key, press spacebar to interact, right? And there's actually this really ugly looking doodad here that I would switch to or get rid of down the road to make my demo look more polished. And then if I hit spacebar, it goes away, and just by virtue of it going away, that's pretty good feedback that it's been collected. But the problem is if you don't understand that that thing is collectible, and you don't understand that you should walk next to it, because until I walk here, I'm not getting very good feedback. So a lot of times what games do to solve that problem is they'll use visual effects to call out the interactive objects. Well, I guess I'd add the first layer of attack on this should always be making your interactive objects just read clearly and intuitively as it is. It's less important for them to be super realistic as it is for them to be interpretable as something you could actually interact with. So a lot of times the important thing would be to just make them stand out from the environment. So you would want to come up with like a design language where all of your interactive stuff is like maybe one color that isn't used in the environment. And that's, I guess you could call that just visual legibility. And sometimes if you have a game that's meant to be realistic, you have a little fight between art and design, where design wants the things to stand out more from the background, but art wants it to look, realistic. And in those cases, sometimes you need to kind of cheat and add like a visual effect, like an outline, like for instance, this orange outline to help me see that it's like special. Or you could have a little shimmer on it, which you'll see a lot of games do. Or like in the case of, I feel like Resident Evil 4 did this. Lots of games do it. They have like little particles coming off of the interactive objects so you can understand that they're interactive. So I'm going to go with the particle solution here just because it's really easy. We're not artists here, so we don't have a ton of control over our art. So if we have something that doesn't read clearly as interactive, or maybe it's really small, or who knows, we can always just throw a particle effect on there. And I thought, what you might want to do is this. Well, first of all, like I always recommend just go find a game that does this. In fact, here, let me pause it. I'm going to find an example. All right, so here's my example. Here we go. Like Leon shoots that bird. And you wouldn't know that there's like an item there to pick up because it blends in with the environment like completely here. But they put this little particle effect on it in order to call it out. This actually looks more like it's like a mesh that's rotating, but same principle. It's like they added something to it to help the player understand they can walk over it and collect that object. So that's kind of the approach we're going to take here. It's something we can add to anything we want in order to make it read as, interactive or collectible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my game object window here, and I'm going to choose effects, and I'm going to choose particle system. And what I was saying earlier was that, rather than make one from scratch, you could probably just like search on the asset store for something that might work. But I didn't want to have to like download like a big package, and I don't know, I was having trouble finding one that would work easily right out of the box. So I figured I'd just use this built-in like default one to kind of show you the basic idea, and then also a little bit of how to customize this stuff, just because if you find something in the asset store, you're probably going to need to customize it anyhow. So anyway, this is what you get if you just click new particle effect. Particles are what is used for things like fire and blood and all sorts of special effects in video games. And you can see it's just like playing over and over and over. So first of all, that's like way too big. So I'm going to change the start size to like something much smaller, like 0.25 maybe even smaller, 0.1. And next, I don't like the like shape that it's coming out in. It's by default, it comes out in like a cone. If I expand this shape thing, so like if you uncheck any of these, they won't be used. So there's like lots of different effect or tweaks we can make to the particles, and if you uncheck them, they don't do anything. So it's kind of nice to have most of them unchecked at the beginning, because you don't have to wonder what could possibly be happening here. So anyway, I'm going to go with box, I think. And so now they're just going to emit anywhere from within this box is where they're going to start in a random position here, and they're going upward. I think they're going much too fast, so let's go ahead and slow down the speed. If I look in here, start speed, let's just take that down to like 1. That looks a little better to me. This orange part is just showing me like the texture selected. It's kind of annoying. I'm sure there's a way to like turn that off, but I actually can't figure it out. It's Gizmos doesn't do it. There's probably something in here. But, selection out. Hey, what do you know? Selection outline. All right, I'll probably want to turn that back on when I'm done messing with the particle effects, but it's kind of distracting to see how this effect works. So now my next problem is, look how high it's like it's going to the sky here. I want it to stop kind of like right around where the end of the box is, honestly. So what I'm going to do next is, that's being dictated by their lifetime, actually. Well, a product of their speed and their lifetime. So it's moving, X units per second across this duration. This is like how long the whole effect would play, but I'm going to leave it looping, so that doesn't really matter. What does matter is the individual particle lifetime. So if I take this down, they will not last as long, and therefore they won't have as much time to travel high into the sky. So, I don't know. This is getting okay. I put it down to 1. And, I mean, honestly, that's okay. What I might, if I wanted to get fancy here, I might go down and find the color over lifetime checkbox and turn that effect on and click it. And I don't know if you are going to have these presets built in, or if they just came from something I was working on in the past, but this is like what I want, where it starts off very transparent, and then it like becomes more opaque, and then it ends transparent, and that way it just looks like it's like fading in and then fading out. So I could just click that, and I think it kind of looks a little less like it's more of a smooth transition, I guess. It's a little harder to see. So I don't know. I don't know if you'll have this, and it's actually honestly probably too hard to see here. So what I'm gonna do is probably like delete all these little like keyframes in this gradient editor, except for like I want to start it like kinda, so like 0 alpha would be like invisible, and that's like fully opaque. Maybe I'll start it invisible. I'll start it this kind of gray color, and then like a little bit into its lifetime, I'm gonna make it more visible. Actually, let's just go all the way visible, and then I'm gonna make its color white. And then around, well, I'll just put this in the middle. And then I'll have it fade out again. I might need it to like have this period of time where it's like staying fully visible and opaque. So I guess to do that, I would just like click over here, make that still fully visible and still white. And so now it's going to be fully visible and white in this chunk. But you can see, like, if this is 100% of the time, like, most of it is not fully visible. So I'm going to make more of the time fully visible. And really just have it kind of fading out at the end. You can kind of see this reflected in the visual representation there. All right, that looks pretty good. Anything else? Maybe I could set up a size over lifetime so that kind of starts off small. I might want to actually do a really similar thing where it starts off small, gets larger, and then possibly gets smaller again. I don't really know. Sometimes you just don't know until you look at this stuff. But actually, it just seems like just turning it on, like with this built-in curve, actually made it look kind of cool. So I'm just going to turn that on, and you can see it's starting smaller and ramping up, and I think that looks pretty good. I might crank the size up a little to make it a little easier to see. And maybe even crank, well, so, you know, the bounding box here, if you go to shape, this is like how big my box is. If I started to increase the dimensions of it somewhere, let's see, I guess you just have to change the scale of each axis. So like if I made them all 2, it would be a bigger box. You would want this to kind of match the size of the thing that you're putting it on, right? So that's how that works. And then, like, I guess if you wanted like more of the little dots floating up, we could increase the, let's see. I guess this would be an emission. And we could increase like the rate over time. Make it put out more of these. There might just be a rate somewhere that starts off, because like this is not a tool I use every day. Well, this looks pretty okay to me. So it would not be a great thing to put on this white cube, because it's like the particle effect is white and the cube is white. So it's really like not helping with visual legibility, right? But what I was thinking of is I had this whole plan where this guard was going to be dead and you could take the key off his body. But that dead corpse does not necessarily read as interactive. So I'm going to go move my particle effect I just made, which I guess is just says particle system by default when you make a new one. Where is that? I guess, did I turn gizmos off? I don't know why I can't really see it. And it's not... Is this not what I made? I'm really confused about what's selected here. Play. I don't know what that is. What is happening here? There we go. I don't know why it was not taking me to the correct spot when I double clicked it. That is strange. But if I hit play, I should see my little box here. I'm just going to move it over by my NPC. And if I go to like click on the Y axis to look down, and then I click here, can't really see this. So if I click right here and get the orthographic or isometric view, I can like orient this right over him. And then like let's run the game and see. Actually, I might need to make sure that it's lined up. Let's make sure it's lined up on this axis too. Something like that probably. All right, let's see how this looks. Well, I feel like it's going too high up, So I probably need to turn the lifetime down quite a bit, or just maybe move it down. So let's try changing the lifetime again. Where is lifetime? And see, there's some options here too. It might be a good idea to make it random to make it feel more, I don't know, dynamic. Still seems too high to me. Maybe I just need to change the shape. So if I go down to emission and I find the shape, maybe I make the Y like smaller here. Although that I didn't necessarily notice a change. Maybe Y is, what does that do when I change it? Oh, that's weird. It's like rotated or something. So really what I want to do is change, I guess there it's Z. I don't know. That's strange that it's rotated like that. But whatever, I just can look at the visual and see I want it to be lower. Let's hit play and see what that looks like. I think that looks better. Let's run the game and see if it actually looks like that. There we go. So hopefully that would kind of like get the player's attention and get them to walk over here. Now in this case, I can actually talk to this guy, which isn't what I'd want. So what I'd want to do is probably make this particle system a child of that, either the object, or in this case it's an NPC. His name is Derek. So I'm going to find Derek in here. Maybe he's not. I had neglected to make him a child of this NPC's game object, which is just for organization. So I'm going to move the particle system onto Derek here. And what I want to do in the NPC here, there is a dialogue system trigger, just like there is on the key. If you look and check it out, the dialogue system trigger on the key, what it does is it's setting this variable, and it's also turning off the key game object. That's why it looks like it's going away. Well, in this case, on Derek, on his dialogue system trigger, which is set up to start this conversation, I actually don't want to do that. And instead, what I want to do is, well, I'd probably want to like run some code to increment the item variable, just like I was doing here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. I'm going to go back to Derek and run Lua code, setting that I have the key to true. I would, I think, add another action where I can set a game object active or inactive. And what I want to do here is hit plus to get a little slot going and put the particle system in there. And I'm just going to turn the particles off when you interact with it. And I feel like maybe this isn't working, but let's just see. If I click off of him and back on him, did that stay? Did that code stay? Oh, it did. Okay, I was worried it was just going to go away for some reason. I don't know why. Because I didn't use the Lua wizard. So if I run over here, well, I also should change his usable. So we're going to override some stuff here, and we'll say something like, well, what did I have it say on the key? I guess I didn't override it. Well, what I'm going to do for this guy is have it say something like inspect body spacebar. And I'd want to make sure that I want to make sure whatever I write here like matches the formatting in terms of capitalization and whether I say space or spacebar for like all of my usable components. So I'd have to just kind of double check that. So it says spacebar to interact. I see. So that's kind of what I should follow on this guy. And it was lowercase. All right, let's see what that looks like. Now, if I really wanted to get fancy, oh, it's saying NPC. I don't want it to say that. I think what I want to do is just override the name and say, so I'd say like dead body or corpse. That's probably better. And then I just have this one say inspect spacebar. All right. And if I really wanted to get fancy, what I was going to mention is I could set it up to play like a crouch down and pick up animation when the player does that. What I need to do, it got rid of the particles, but what I also need to do is get rid of the usable component. So what I want to do is add another action to disable, because in this case I don't want to turn the whole game object off, because I would turn the model, that would make the model disappear, which you're not collecting the dead body, so that doesn't make sense. But I do want to disable the usable component that's on him, which, let's see how easy it is to pick that out, because there's all these different components. I think it'll be easier to drag from up here. So I'm going to drag this into that slot, and you can see that way it knows what component that I'm dealing with. If it was on a different game object, it would be a little tricky to drag that in, but there are ways. And I want to actually turn that off. And so if I run this one, I wonder, there we go. So the particles turn off, and the usable's gone. I might want to play an alert also. I think that's a thing I could do here. So let's add an action and say show alert, and the message will be like, you picked up a key to the garage key, we'll say. So one more time, let's see what that does. Cool. And, you know, like we've done in the past, we'd want to update our quests and have a quest entry that says, like, you've got the garage key, you should take it back to James, or whatever the case may be. All right, so that's good for this video. I'll see you in the next one.